Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Market Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, September 8th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through here is for information purposes only. Here is the risk disclaimer. And yes, market recap. I want to say it's Tuesday, but it is not Tuesday. It is Wednesday. And theme of the day, I would say that. Well, I hate to use this phrase, but it is what it is. It's September, and September, we can sometimes see a little bit of a little bit of volatility and some weaker markets. So when we look at the averages for the day, really not that big of a move in the S&P and Nasdaq. It kind of felt a little bit worse than it was, and I think specifically that's because when you look at market breadth, and really what got hit particularly hard today was the small caps. They were down over 1%. Also, the micro caps were down over 1% too. How did the mid caps do today? The mid caps were just down, just down a little bit, down about a third of a percent. They were lower yesterday. Bonds were up today. After yields going higher, they came right back in. The TLT was up close to 0.75%. And then the VIX was actually down on the day after rising. Now, the VIX was higher in the beginning of the day, got up to 1915, which was close to where it was that the end of yesterday too. And let's see. Let me make sure I'm zoomed out appropriately here. No, it was where it was pre-market was almost got up to 20. But yesterday it did close on the highs. Things like RVX, which is the VIX for IWM, did stay a bit elevated today, and that did close higher for the day. So let's go through some technicals for the day. We'll talk about, of course, what I traded for the day and what my thoughts are going forward. But here's S&P kind of coming down a little bit, and you've got a nice little hammer bar for the day, almost into the top of value. Here, let me turn on my labels here so you could see some levels to watch. But my thoughts earlier on in the day was just to kind of try to let today play out a little bit. You could see that we have been going lower since the beginning of the week. We broke through the value area for the week. This is on the 1 hour chart. Again, you get a whole value area for the week when you look at the 1 hour chart. There's a couple things that I would note, observations here. Number one, we are below value for the week. We also dropped below this 200 period moving average, right? I mentioned this in yesterday's video that we just barely did break below it, but it's the first time that we've been below this basically this month and through half of the last week of August. So now that we're below value, we're kind of caught in the middle, right? So the level that I would want to see price reclaim would be 45.20, right? That would be the first level for price to reclaim. If that does not get reclaimed and comes back up here, it kind of came up here midday and turned back down, and not a lot of volatility to the downside. But notice there's this 1 hour VPOC down here at 4482. Again, notice if you look at last week, where did this virgin point of control arise from? Well, it was from last week. Notice not only did the price did it not pass through the point of control last week, but price was actually above value for the whole week. So definitely left behind some levels here, and that may need to be taken out. That remains to be seen. It's tough to kind of gauge that when you just had kind of a slow day today, where we're just down. Just slightly, ended up being down slightly for the day. Also, so remember this, well, I just took the chart away. So this downside level is 44.81 or 44.82. Remember that level, 44.82. Where's the top of value for the month, right? For the month of September, it's pretty close to that. It's 44.77. So that's what I'm kind of looking for, given that it is the month that we're in. If we were not in September and if we were in a stronger seasonal month, then I would say, hey, maybe we might actually turn tomorrow. And that is definitely possible. But in terms of like how I trade and how I add risk, I added a little bit of risk today. on the dip, which again, it wasn't even really a dip today. It was in small caps, but not in S&P. But I did take a look at some things that came in slightly for the day, at least that were down on the day. And I said, hey, this is starting to look attractive. So I put on a couple starter positions. I put on another swing position, which I'll talk about again. But yeah, I mean, this to me would be a little bit better of an area that I think would be a place to add risk. But I don't have a crystal ball, and I don't know that we would go down there. But we've talked about this before too. I talked about this in one of last week's video that every month, like and it's not every month, but like the last 19 months, we've come in and touched the top of value for the month at some point during the month. Right, so I'm using that as well. Right, everything is in an uncertain world. Always deal with probabilities. So, for example, right, and I'm not going to go back every 19 months, but you can look here for the first one on my screen, right? Or if you want to zoom back further, every one of these value areas for the month. Like here's one, right? We hit the top. We at least touch the top of value. So here's one. Next one. Next one. We started the month above value. Here's another one. We actually had more volatility than that. I'm going all the way back. This is like October of last year. Again, up, back and touched the top of value. Here we broke through to the upside to the top of value. Here, I'll zoom in here a little bit now that I've gone through some of those examples. But here's another one. Started again, touched that top of value. I know it's tough to see here because these are grayed out. We only keep the front, the current month active. But here's another one, 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 here's another one. So we have not done that exercise yet of touching the top of value, and that's kind of where my head is at. All right, the touching of the top of the value area. Again, it can happen where we don't touch the top of value. Is it likely? No. So that's kind of where my head is at. Now, is this far away? No, it's not far away. We could get there tomorrow, no problem. We almost got there today, on a tiny little pullback. Okay, so that's where it is, where my thought is. And again, we don't necessarily have to hit that this week. We could hit it next week, or we could hit it the week after. Right, so that's the S&P chart. So again, it kind of gives you a little bit of a setup. You don't have to be, as I've said over and over, you don't have to be bearish. You don't have to be, perma bearish. You don't have to be perma bullish. You could just be kind of, reasonable, right, about this, right? And the other thing to note too is we did lose this 5-period moving average. Price was. When the price is above the 5-period moving average, I like to stay long for as long as this appears this way until I think that we're getting a little bit mature in the swing, which is why I started to take off risk. I was a net seller over the last 3 days, basically. So that's the S&P. It gets a little bit more complicated when we get to small caps, which I want to go over NASDAQ first. NASDAQ is a little bit of a different looking picture. We're still way above the 20-day moving average. So NASDAQ, even though it was down a little bit today, was still is a stronger picture, in terms of technically. Notice we did go through the value area very quickly, bounce back, and this one we're inside value, right? So S&P is below value for the week. NASDAQ is inside value for the week. So here's where it gets a little bit more complicated because of the volatility. But the small caps, right? So we talked about this last week, right? Not only did we get above value for the month, but we also took out this virgin point of control. And once again, a pretty good example of a virgin point of control. We basically reached outside of value and took out that level, found where a lot of buyers and sellers lived or have previously met up, right? That's what these lines are. That's what a point of control is where the most volume in a given period where buyers and sellers meet up, right? And notice we've rose up to that, took it out. And since then, have basically been down since then. I mentioned that there are other again, nothing is 100%. I mentioned that there was 2 of these virgin point of controls on the 1-hour time frame. We're leaving them for another time to take out. When that happens, No idea, but we did leave those two behind for the small caps. For now, they have been the weaker, and we are below value. Next level that I would see, just like S&P, we're kind of caught in the middle. We're below value for the week, and you've got a virgin point of control that's sitting down here at 22.26. All right, I would think again. I err on the side of that. This could be taken out before we bounce. I just think it's a little bit early. So that's my thought on the indices. Again, spend a little bit more time on them. Today, again, always will show you my trade blotter, but I came in a little bit long Tesla. Yeah, I like the way Tesla reacted yesterday. Was off to a good start this morning, and then just kind of got hit, but still holding the uptrend. So I've mentioned that Tesla can be tricky, right? The last few weeks, last few months, it goes up, it comes in a little bit, goes up, comes in a little bit. So it's kind of doing the same thing, right? So I did add, I took a target right in the beginning of the day. Again, was not greedy, trying not to be greedy with this market. And I took a target, and then I added that back, like basically a half hour later once we got some volatility. I could have added that a little bit cheaper. Do I want to add a lot of exposure for a weekly trade? No, that's why I didn't add to that. I put on a name that unfortunately has a secondary after hours, and a lot of secondaries last couple days. DLR. Let's see how bad this thing's getting hit here after hours. Yeah, down to 160. So. That hurts a bit to put on a trade, and that's what we call being unlucky. But it does happen, especially now. Like I said, there's a few companies that have been reporting secondary, so I may be out of this boring trade is no longer boring anymore. I'll probably get stopped out of that. We'll see if it comes back in the after hours market. What else? I did have a hedge in place, right? I sold some call spreads, so those are known as bear call spreads, right? Credit spreads. So I bought those back today, $1.50 for 335, and I think I covered the last one lower. Was it? No, that was it. That was out of this credit spread, right? So again, I was playing a little bit of defense. I had a partial small hedge on. There's not even I wouldn't even say not even a big hedge, but I did think it was wise to sell a little bit of premium as we were going into September. I took off net. So again, playing a little bit of defense. Whenever I see some volatility and that we might be turning lower, I tend to say, hey, what am I holding in terms of option positions? Usually those are the first to go. And then I kind of just wait till the dust settles a little bit. I played NVIDIA a little bit today, which there just wasn't enough oomph to the downside. Notice where this closed. So, here's a good example, right, of how to play a virgin point of control. The issue was we just didn't have enough power to get back inside value. So we did take out the virgin point of control. That's where I waited a little bit just to confirm that price was going to hold there. It did, but we really didn't move too much to the upside. So I hit one target and took the rest of the trade off, considering we're right at the bottom of value. INMD, we just don't get a lot of days where this thing's down. It did finish down 1.9%, and I'll probably continue to add to this. Even if this thing comes all the way down into 124, there I would be a bigger buyer. But you could see the red candles have been few and far between, so I did feel like getting involved in this one a little bit. Datadog, I've been long the stock. I've been very patient in the stock. And it's been working the right way. It's just been tough because every time this name has tried to break out, it appears that there's been a seller in this name. But some nice October calls that hit the tape today. So I added some. I did add an option position to my stock position today, and I did take a target with that right away, 770 at 710. PayPal. So again, this is kind of like a little bit sloppy trading by me. I was looking at we were talking about this pre-market. Why I didn't take the target pre-market, I don't know. I just thought I would have been fine on the open, but 298 was the VPOC. So again, another example of a virgin point of control. We traded there this morning. 298, and then basically straight down. So this was not good trade management by me, and that happens sometimes. You make a mistake, or I was kind of thinking, hey, it's PayPal, it should hang in there, and it basically just gave back the week's gains. So I did have a stop on it. I looked at it at the end of the day, threw the stop price, and that's it. So, other names that I'm looking at. So, what I would concentrate, or what I'm concentrating on in the next couple of days, is just names that are going to show relative strength. Names that are going to be the first one to rebound, like this Datadog, for example. Before I added the option position, I even put this on Twitter that, hey, I'm like, this name's doing something different. The dip was bought very quickly. So these are the things that I try to concentrate on when we do see these dips in the market from time to time. Again, like I said, today wasn't really much of a dip in the S&P, more so in small caps and some other areas of the market. But this is generally what I tend to look for, right? What names are investors going to say, hey, I finally got it, just like I was talking about with INMD. What names are the institutions going to come in and do the same thing and say, hey, I've been waiting to get into this name. Let me go ahead and start buying this name on a little bit of weakness, right? Those are the ones that I really try to concentrate on and notice the relative strength. What else did particularly well today? So Tesla did pretty well. A couple other software names. There's so many of these software names that have done well. This BILL finished positive for the day, right? Again, another one that was negative, right? So again, just not seeing any sellers come in, even though the overall tape was weak. Another one that I'm watching too, and like I mentioned this in yesterday's video too. If you're positioned the right way, you start to really, you could play offense in these situations. So MDB down 3.7% today, retracing some of this move. This is a name that I'm interested in. So, I'm letting this one come in a little bit. 1 hour chart. So this will be one that I watch tomorrow. Notice where this thing stopped and held pretty nicely. Top of value so 471. So if we get a bounce off of that, again, it tells me that buyers are and funds are under positioned in this name, right? And they're going to start buying it. So again, kind of one of the names I'll definitely be watching, and I'll just kind of leave it there for now. To be a little bit more negative, one of the things, and I know that, they were talking about this a little while ago, I think on CNBC, but there are going to be companies that are going to be impacted by these supply issues, right? We've now heard a couple companies, right? PPG was yesterday that came out, and they cut their guidance because of supply constraints. And so it's really interesting. It's not a demand issue. It's that they just can't get the parts that they need, right? We've obviously heard about this with the semis for a while, but Sherman-Williams was a name that was also, has been a very, very strong name, and they've mentioned that they have to bring in their numbers too. So this is a big unknown. We don't know how long this is going to last in terms of these supply chain issues. Right? Is it going to be another couple weeks, a couple months? And it may, some of these companies are going to report bad quarters because they just can't get the parts and the materials that they need, or is it going to be something longer? So, that's a concern, a structural concern for the market. And some names are going to be hit by this. Right, because they just can't get things. It's the same thing with the big car companies. And it's not only the chip issue, but there's a lot of parts that go into a car that they just can't get to make, and they just don't have the inventory to sell. It's a very unusual time that we're in to see something like this. So, it's one of those things to kind of just maybe watch, pay attention to. But I don't ever remember this other than something really temporary where just companies cannot get the materials that they need to build their products to sell the products. It's a pretty big issue that's going to happen for some companies. So I didn't go over the market breadth for the day, but here it is, just so that you have a visual of that. The Dow, not that bad, 14 advancing, 16 declining. S&P also like right down the middle, but here it is for the Nasdaq. 2000 over 2000 declining versus 800 advancing names. Again, it's really where the breadth was bad. Once again, this and the semiconductors, so there are some things. If we, sorry, just to spend one more minute here on this video, but there's a couple things that are kind of touchy, right? So we've talked about the semis. I mentioned that because we saw some call buying in here. I actually saw some call buying again today in the semiconductors. This time it came in one of the leveraged funds, but just into the 20-day moving average. So this will be definitely one I think to watch. See if this can get back above 271.70. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.